something that's interesting that they're doing with their Star Wars movies, though, where like they've got like the main Star Wars storyline, but then they have like the Han Solo movie and the Rogue One movie, and you know what I mean. And I almost wish that that's kind of what Marvel was doing with these, where it's like you got your three core ones, you know, your Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. Like, are maybe if those were the more like, these are the threads you need to follow, and the other ones are like sidetracky. Like, I haven't seen Doctor Strange, and when
it's so good.
Well, it is. That really is good.
It's really good.
I have no desire, but when he popped up in the movie, in this Thor movie, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny how they put him in, and it was a nice light touch.
He seems super a light touch.
Well, no, I mean, it was like a quick moment, right. You know, relatively, and I thought, oh, that's kind of clever how they handled that. I thought it was one of the better little moments in the film, but...
And that was supposed to be one of the spoilers, too, that he was a surprise. Well, no, I feel like we established at the top that this is a spoiler, but that he was in it. Was
the real spoiler is Matt Damon.
That is the real spoiler.
I know, that was amazing.
Here's what I'll say. As much as I know we got to wrap up here kind of soon, as much as I wasn't... I really liked those first wave of Marvel movies, and I was looking forward to the Avengers. And starting with the Avengers, I went, well, it's dead. Because The Avengers is arguably my least favorite movie of all time. I'm not saying it's the worst movie. I'm not saying it's the worst movie.
Oh my God.
But it is definitely up there with Ed Wood and a couple others. But my biggest problem with the Marvel movie, with the Avengers movie, I say the Marvel's The Avengers because the Avengers with Ray Fiennes and Uma Thurman I really loved.
Oh my God.
But Marvel's The Avengers. They took these filmmakers, like I was saying earlier, who like went out of their way to legitimize things that should not be taken seriously, and they created these rich, dramatic characters with rich, dramatic questions, like the end of Thor, you know, like I said, him destroying the bridge, losing his brother, all this stuff, and then the Avengers movie showed up, and it was lighthearted and jokey. It looked cheap. The costumes looked really cheap. Captain America's costume in that, you can't deny, looks like a Halloween costume, especially compared to the costume from the first one. Even Thor, the slight difference is how Thor had long sleeves in the first one and his hair was only shoulder length. That actually legitimizes a character as opposed to having like the big giant shoulder pads and like, you know, the heavy metal hair that he had in Avengers. But what they did to the characters... How all of a sudden here's Captain America in this movie and he's just a joke. He's nothing but like puns from the 30s. You know what I mean? There's only one God, ma'am, and I'm sure he doesn't dress like that. Dun, 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 you know, I get the Wizard of Oz. And then Thor, he just comes out of nowhere. And the whole major dramatic thing at the end of Thor was that he destroyed his only way back to Earth to stop his brother. Like, that was the thing. And then, like, he just pops up on a lightning bolt. And Loki's like, oh, it looks like Dad worked up enough magic. And he's like, that's right, Loki, now we're going home. I'm like, what? You're going home? Like, they just didn't care. That, not to mention, you've also got them touching their ears when there's obviously nothing in their ears that they're communicating with. It was just a movie that didn't care. And a lot of people back then threw out the excuse, oh, you have so many characters, you know, you can't do a whole lot. And I'm like, that's bullshit. The first X-Men movie had way more iconic characters, both heroes and villains, and didn't have 6 movies leading up to it to fill you in on who it was. And it didn't have a bunch of like superhero movies before it to kind of get you in the groove of superhero movie. No, it came out, it was believable, it was badass, it was aggressive, and everybody got good screen time. In fact, the first X-Men is the only time Cyclops had gotten good screen time. And so I just didn't buy any of that.
Yeah, well, any last thoughts about Thor? Because I'm going to jump to a couple of quick, let people know what's out this weekend with some initial thoughts.
I feel like we've beaten Thor dead with his own hammer at this point.
Yeah. I'm just going to go back and watch the first one. It's really good.
No, it's not. Don't waste your time.
I never saw... You said you didn't see the second either, or what?
I skipped out on the second. I saw
too.
the first.
Watch the second half of the second one. It's real good.
Just completely, skip the first
Start
half.
with his mom dying. Spoilers.
What?
Spoilers. Let's just not watch Ant-Man. I can't believe you guys thought that was good.
I didn't
was that
think it
just
was
you,
good.
Carl?
That was just
I love Ant-Man.
I knew so many people who worked on it too, and I was like all gung-ho, and then it was like, oh.
Well, I think what it was because I'm not normally a superhero obsessive fan, and so to me it was different, and I'm a huge fan of Paul Rudd, and I like heist movies, and it was more like a heist comedy that happened to have a superhero thing, and I thought that a lot of the gags were pretty inventive about, you know, the different size things and all that
When
stuff.
you've got a tank in your movie, you use that tank. That was my big guff with that movie. Paul Rudd's a good secondary actor. I don't think he's a lead. I don't think he has the substance.
I love Paul Rudd.
Thank you.
And I'm into superhero movies mostly, but he's a freaking ant. Like, I can't feel passionate about an ant. I just just
No,
can't.
I
He's
thought-
like terrified
no,
in
no.
bed because there are ants near him. I
No.
mean, really, is he 5?
There's that scene where he's like sort of falling molecularly apart or whatever, and I thought that was powerful because he really thought he was losing everything, and couldn't come back. And I thought that was really
The only
strong.
thing I remember about that movie is that they didn't use the tank well, and that it had Hemingway from Midnight in Paris. That was the only
Okay.
thing I remember about that movie.
Well, yeah. So, folks, will check out these movies and decide for yourself. But I just want to say we should probably every week, if we see these movies early, give a quick rundown of what's out for the week. And I saw both the big releases. I saw the highly artistic Daddy's Home 2. That was actually, I thought it was kind of funny on its own dumb level. I mean, Will Ferrell is. It's nice to see that he's one comedy star who, even when he tries to get more serious sometimes, isn't above, like, still doing what people want him to do, and he delivers the goofball thing. And it was fun to see Mel Gibson and John Lithgow playing into their opposing stereotypes of the macho jerk and the sort of effeminate fop dad and all that. And I don't know, it's funny enough, if you're, they're probably not for film hipsters, but
I walked out of the first Daddy's Home, and I'm really looking forward to walking out of this one too.
I liked the first one, and I didn't expect to because I'm not into physical comedy like that, but I'm super looking forward to this one.
They knew how to get me back. They're
I
like,
thought it
hey,
was
this
fun.
one's got Mel, and I'm like, shit. All right, I'll be there.
And then otherwise, Murder on the Orient Express.
Hell yeah.
Thought that was amazing. It's every level. I thought it was absolutely superb. I mean, the score is one of the greatest scores I've ever heard, I think, honestly. And the look of it's beautiful. The cast is wonderful. And the thing that I thought was the most interesting thing about it was that even as it's a really bad person being taken down, that's the heart of the murder. There was something about how Kenneth Branagh directs it that makes it like have moral weight to even the killing of a villain. I mean, this is I've almost never seen a big Hollywood movie where you actually feel like, wow, there was moral consequence, and the killer is acting in relation to a really feeling like conflicted and bad about what's going on, but they have to do it.
Directed by Kenneth Branagh, who directed the first Thor.
Yep.
Coincidence? I think not.
I knew we were coming back.
Oh, yeah. He's the best. That's the real secret to Thor. Just get Kenneth Branagh back to direct it.
But absolutely recommend it. The first version in the 70s was up for 6 Oscars, won 3 of them. I think this is going to be up for a whole bunch as well. It's really amazing. So, folks, anything you guys want to tout? We got to go in just a minute, or we'll just wrap it up. Till next week, I'm Carl Kozlowski.
I'm Zoe Hewitt.
I'm Joe Black.
And this has been Film Fighters on Radio Titans, and thanks to Dr. David Robinson on the board. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.